Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session on ELIXIR, the European Life Science Infrastructure for Biological Information. My name is Baiba Vilne, and I'm in charge for promoting the development of our national ELIXIR node, and hence I will be serving as your chair today. I have to say that this session has been enabled by Rīga Stradiņš University's participation in this Horizon Europe program, which we're really grateful for. And we are particularly proud to begin this session with a milestone event, the official signing of the Latvian National Memorandum of Understanding and participation in the ELIXIR Consortium, which affirms the intent of our first full national institutions, and we hope that several others will follow soon, to jointly develop the Latvian ELIXIR node. It is therefore my honor to invite to the podium the representatives of these four institutions to sign the memorandum. Dr. Agrita Kiopa, Vice Rector for Science at Rīga Stradiņš University, please. Dr. Gunārs Skittenbergs, Vice Rector for Science at the University of Latvia. Dr. Nils Rostoks, Director of the Latvian Biomedical Research and Study Center. And Dr. Valds Ābols, Chairman of the Board at the Children's Clinical University Hospital. Please welcome. Please take your seats. And let's start the signing procedure. So this step marks the beginning of a deeper integration of Latvia into the ELIXIR ecosystem. And the memorandum will be signed in 4 copies. Each institution will get one. Thank you to all the representatives for your commitment. You can take each one copy, yes, please. And with that, I would like to open the talks, and I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker, Andrew Smith, Head of the External Relations of the ELIXIR Hub in UK, here in person in Riga. Thanks for coming, Andrew. Please, the floor is yours. Or better to say, I need to leave the floor.
Many thanks, Baiba. So it's a real privilege to be here today. So big thanks for the invitation. Thanks to the PMNET Forum organisers as well. It's really been a fantastic event, and I'm honoured to be here. And it's really great to follow the first signing ceremony from the first 4 institutions that will be working together in future when we hope that Latvia becomes an observer or a member in ELIXIR. So it's a real privilege to be here. What I would like to do is introduce you to, in a bit more detail, what ELIXIR is, how other countries are connecting to it and taking part in activities, because I think over the coming years, this is really a good outcome that we would like to achieve, ensuring that the Latvian bioinformatics community can make deeper connections with other members of ELIXIR in other countries. So I'll talk you through some of those activities. I'll explain how you can get involved in it, and I will also introduce you to some of the services and resources that other ELIXIR nodes provide as well. So these are the databases, tools, registries that bioinformaticians can already be accessing and using. Okay, and then I'm happy to take questions at the end of it. So, if we think about why does there need to be a coordination effort across Europe for life science data, so for bioinformatics, why is that important? Why did the countries come together to try and create this? And why does each individual country need to be thinking about how it can bring together its expertise in bioinformatics? There are several drivers here. So the first one are the large volumes of data that are being generated now. We all know the volumes of sequence data that are being generated, but if we think of image data and other technologies as well. And of course, it's the need to integrate across different domains and different technology types that is really important as well. So if we think of the life sciences, whether it's personalized medicine, connecting human research data with real-world clinical data is really important. And you can only create an infrastructure where scientists and clinicians can benefit from that when you're integrating different resources across different domains and technology types. I think it's also important to recognize that there's expertise all around Europe. And of course, the generation of these data comes from groups everywhere. You've got labs in industry and academia that are generating data, that are using these resources. And so it's important to think with a global perspective how to connect as well. And then finally, there's also a very strong driver around sensitive human data. So some of the ethical and legal reasons why you can't transfer data outside the jurisdiction in which it was generated. Therefore, each country needs to build up its capacity, so its infrastructure to be able to store it. And by capacity, that also means the skills to interpret, analyze that data, and get societal and medical benefit from it as well. So there's a lot of reasons why there needs to be national expertise built up in connection between institutions, and then why you need to connect across countries. So ELIXIR itself is an intergovernmental organization, so it's funded through all of the countries that you see here. So the ministries of science take part. EMBL is also a member of that. And then we've got several countries that are currently observers. And of course, over the coming period, we would really like to be able to help to integrate Latvia into these activities as well. So when a country becomes a member of ELIXIR, the scientists, the bioinformaticians in those universities and institutes are providing bioinformatics-related services. And just to introduce very briefly what some of these are, because I'll come back to them later in the talk, and then you'll also hear from one of our colleagues in ELIXIR-UK about our data management activities later on. This is just to give you a high-level introduction. There are lots of databases that are out there at the moment. So sometimes they are deposition databases where you can put your sequence data, your proteomics data, your metabolomics data. But sometimes there are also curated, added value databases, things like UniProt, for example. And so across ELIXIR, in those institutes, there are hundreds of databases that are already being used by scientists. And some of those could in future come from Latvia as well. Training is really important, and all of the ELIXIR nodes are interested in this. So how can we train the next generation of bioinformaticians so that they can analyze, interpret, and get benefit from the data that are now being managed and stored? It's also important to think about the data analysis tools, so the software and workflows that will allow people to analyze and exploit that data. These could be registries and workflow systems. So there's a lot of activities that are happening here to try and coordinate across Europe for software. Another area is really compute. So many countries have national supercomputing facilities, either dedicated to life sciences or perhaps they're generic, but they have life science applications that they support. And so a lot of countries are thinking about how to connect their supercomputing facilities with the needs of the life science community. And we've got an active program of activities in our compute platform that does that, tries to connect the national computing facilities with the needs of the life sciences. And then finally, data management is really key as well, because you need expert practitioners who can help those that are generating the data, making sure that it's fair findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So that gives you an idea about the domains that ELIXIR nodes provide services in, okay? They are all structured by bringing together the experts through universities and research institutes via ELIXIR nodes. Some of these nodes you will already have heard of, organizations like the Swiss Institute for Bioinformatics, the European Bioinformatics Institute. So these pre-exist as already existing nodes. But by becoming a member of ELIXIR, other countries have taken the first steps to coordinate their national data infrastructures, and that's why it's been really, really pleasing to see these first steps taken by the 4 first institutions in Latvia. So if we take ELIXIR Czech Republic, for example, there are now 12 institutions that are represented in ELIXIR Czech. It's mainly the universities, but it's also 2 research institutes and the supercomputing center. So now they work together, they collaborate, they help to manage the data that are coming from labs and facilities across the country. So the scope of that node may change depending on the national interests. Quite often there'll be a strong focus on human data, and that's likely to be the case here given the strengths in personalized medicine that I can see across Latvia. But also training is very important as well. And it's up to each node to try and determine what its focuses are based on its national strengths. The funding model of ELIXIR, just to talk you through this, because we're very active in taking part in European funded projects in Horizon Europe, especially projects around the European Open Science Cloud and the Research Infrastructures Programme. But the first thing to note here is that the services in ELIXIR are run by the nodes. Quite often, they will receive national funding, or they might receive funding from industry or from philanthropic organizations, or they may access structural funds to help support their local activities. That happens quite often. And then collectively, they will submit proposals to the Horizon Europe program to work on bioinformatics, data, infrastructure-related projects as well. And then one of the other things I will introduce you to in a moment is when a country becomes a member of ELIXIR, the scientists will also take part in commissioned service projects. So these are projects where the community of bioinformaticians will work together with experts in other ELIXIR nodes on a particular topic. Now, there's obviously big differences between lots of the countries that are active in ELIXIR, but to take a comparably sized country like Estonia, for example, you can see here the list of projects that Estonian bioinformaticians are involved in with other ELIXIR partners. And so I think that's quite important to see here as well. If you see this wheel here, you can see the projects that Estonian bioinformaticians are now connected to and working with in other ELIXIR nodes. And so that's quite an important development. And you can also see the themes that these are involved in as well, from data management through to compute to some data, to some domain-specific communities as well. And I'll give you an overview in a moment of examples of the science areas where ELIXIR nodes are working on. So that's one thing that we would like to be able to build to in future. And I can imagine that training and capacity building is something that's likely to be of interest to the Latvian bioinformatics community as well. And so there is a knowledge building and capacity exchange scheme where we can help to fund projects where bioinformaticians will work with industry, or they will work with international partners outside Europe. We funded projects where they've worked with the NIH, for example, in the US. But also there's a scheme where scientists can work with other ELIXIR nodes to learn new skills, how to operate a particular resource or technology area, and then bring that knowledge back to their country as well. And so here I'll mention one, a single-cell omics-related project where an expert from ELIXIR Czech spent some time in Imperial in London, and then the consequence of that short-term secondment was that they were able to train and upskill more researchers in the Czech Republic when they returned. They developed a summer school on single cell. They've worked on a joint publication in Frontiers in Oncology, and then they've also begun other future national and European collaborations as well. So this, I would say that this should be a big driver in your thinking, how to connect to other nodes who are active in bioinformatics as well. I mentioned earlier that our partners in the nodes regularly take part in EU-funded projects, and this just gives you an idea of some of them. And I will talk you through the different areas that they are active in. The current portfolio is 16 active EU-funded projects, and some of our nodes are involved in many more as well. But to give you an idea of them, so they mainly come from the research infrastructures part of Horizon Europe, where the aim is the aim of this funding is to help build capacity in countries for running research infrastructures. And quite often there are dedicated topics that relate to data. And because ELIXIR covers everything from personalized medicine through to biodiversity, it means that our partners are quite active in European funded projects. So to give an example, the ELIXIR Steers project. So this is one of our projects where every single ELIXIR node is involved in this project, and it has a focus on software development best practices. And we've also got a package of activities that are about developing nodes, so node development, as well as training as well. We've got another project called EOSC Entrust. So EOSC, for those of you who don't know, is the European Open Science Cloud, and it's quite an important open science driver at the European level, where I imagine that you'll be also thinking through how Latvia will connect to and contribute to the European Open Science Cloud. Well, in ELIXIR, we act as a life science node along with other partners, and we're active in several EOSC projects. One of them here, for example, is EOSC Entrust, which is about trying to develop a blueprint for trusted research environments. So if we think that data can't be transferred outside national boundaries, we do need a mechanism where access can still be provided for researchers outside that country. And so these trusted research environments are really important in helping institutions to develop an architecture that would allow them to establish trusted research environments is key. We're also involved in a genomics biodiversity project called BGE. So just to give you an idea about the different domains that our partners are involved in. And then also another quite visible project called the GDI, Genomics Data Infrastructure, where I know that Latvia is active in this project as well. So there's quite a long list of these EU projects where ELIXIR nodes represent their node, where institutions represent their ELIXIR node when they're taking part in these. I mentioned that the domains and technology areas that ELIXIR is involved in is quite broad. So this just gives you an idea of it. So we've got 21 national nodes plus EBI, and within that, there are about 1,000 bioinformaticians or computer scientists that are active in ELIXIR's projects. And so they come together in particular domains or disciplines. And that's really the added value of ELIXIR, how to bring experts together in a particular domain. So you see here on the slides a list of those current communities or focus groups that we have. And of course, as Latvia gets more involved, you'll be able to connect to many of these groups. And they touch on a huge diversity of different areas, from health data through to systems biology, to rare diseases, and then biodiversity, plant science, marine metagenomics. And so what you're doing by connecting to these communities and focus groups is coming up with ideas to collaborate with other experts across those 21 member states and other countries. So I also want to mention some of the events that we have. Now, these are open for anyone in Latvia to take part in. Okay, these are some of the flagship events that we organize. So in early November, we're organizing the Biohackathon. This is an annual event where bioinformaticians or hackers will come together. They will submit the ideas of the projects that they want to hack on. And it's a 5-day event. The feedback from attendees that come to this event is always really positive. The contacts that they make, the skills that they develop from working with other experts on a particular project. So this is free of charge to go to. The next event is in Berlin in early November, but we run this every year. So in autumn 2026, we'll be having another biohackathon where we can welcome contributions from the Latvian community. We also do a lot of work to try and stimulate industry innovation. So we recognize that there's a lot of companies that use public data. There's also a lot of companies that provide technologies that generate data. And so we have different events that allow ELIXIR experts to work with those organizations as well. And some of those big European events are our SME forum and our bioinformatics industry forum as well, where we might have them in large capital cities, like say in London or Barcelona. They are free, they're open for anyone to come to. But if Latvia was to become a member of ELIXIR and it wanted to do some local outreach more to deepen links with national industry, then we also have a fund that can help to pay for local academia industry events within a particular country as well. And that's a big topic that I think is definitely worth exploring, how to make sure that industry can benefit from the data expertise that you'll be building up as part of the node. So I've been telling you a little bit about the structure of ELIXIR, about the nodes, about some of the ways that we work through projects and European grants, but I also wanted to just give you an idea about some of the services that ELIXIR nodes provide, because there are 600 services in total, with the exception of the compute resources, where there's a charge. Everything else is free. So the databases, the standards, the ontologies, of course, it's all free and everyone can be using them. And no doubt many of you are already benefiting from some of those big resources, those big deposition databases. But it can be hard for scientists to know what service to use for a particular experimental need, because there are so many of them. And so we have a list of recommended resources. So we have what we call core data resources. And actually, these are really large databases that are fundamental to the healthy operation of the life sciences ecosystem. Resources like UniProt, or the European Nucleotide Archive, Europe PMC, things like this. And there we work with funders for them to recognize the importance of these. We've also got a list of deposition databases as well. So for example, if you sensitive human data, maybe the recommendation is to put it into the European Phenome Archive, for example, so that others can also benefit from that. So we've got a list of those recommended deposition databases. And then also a list of recommended interoperability resources. So these include registries to help find data sharing policies, standards, ontologies. It's all about trying to make data fair. And this is a set of services that people can use free of charge to help them. I'll also mention some of our registries in general, because I recognize that there are lots of services. So finding out which ones to use based on your particular needs is important. So for fair sharing, for example, that's run by ELIXIR-UK, and that's a fantastic resource of over 1,000 standards. We have TESS, which is a resource that started in the UK and also has significant contributions from many other countries. And here, this is an online registry of training. So sometimes it's online courses, but it's also a list of training, face-to-face training courses as well. And everyone can put content in there. So if you've got online bioinformatics courses that you're running, you can already curate them into here. Or if you've got students that have a particular training need, you can ask them to have a look and test to see if there's pre-existing courses that they might benefit from. And then on the software and registry side as well, we've got biocontainers that has has over 70,000 containers and packages. And then we've got BioTools, which is essentially a list of software-related services where each month there's 35,000 hits on that website as well. So there's a lot of these registries which you can already use free of charge. I'll only very briefly mention our research data management resources, because my colleague Munazah from ELIXIR-UK will tell you in a moment a bit more about the amazing work that's happening here. But the concept is really bringing together ELIXIR's experts in research data management, and then also having some unique resources that the community can use. And the community also actively contributes to these as well. So things like the RDM kit, where you could have Latvian contributions being made to this resource, as well as data management, as well as bioinformaticians being able to use the knowledge that is provided through the research data management kit. And then I'll finish in the last 2 slides by coming back to the topic of the PMNET forum. And one of the things that we see is that almost all countries that are active in ELIXIR are really keen to be putting in place data infrastructures that allow them to be able to manage securely and safely sensitive human data. There are lots of projects nationally and at the European level that are supporting the generation of human data. And of course, we need systems in place to make sure that they connect to the health data and the electronic, the clinical records and real-world data as well. So this is a big area of activity in ELIXIR through commission service projects and also through European-funded grants. And just to give you an idea about some of the concepts behind it and what's happening, there's a resource called the European Genome Phenome Archive that's jointly run by the European Bioinformatics Institute and ELIXIR Spain. But each country, well, many countries are also looking to build their own version of this, where the metadata will transfer across national boundaries, but the data themselves will be stored in these local installations. So it's a federated European Genome Phenome Archive, and there's a lot of work being done that will help other countries build their own capacity in here. And some of this is happening in the context of a large European project called the 1 Million Genomes, where there's a data infrastructure component to it, there's a legal component. There's a project called the Genome of Europe, which and the genomics data infrastructure, which I know that Latvian partners are already connected to. And I think that's one message that I would like to leave with you as I finish. There's lots of data that are being generated in different domains. Personalized medicine, but also other areas. And I think it's really an important opportunity for Latvia now to grasp these opportunities and build its national data infrastructure that's pooling expertise, that's training bioinformaticians, that's thinking through your compute. And if you do that through a node and working with other countries, it's likely to lead to better outcomes because there'll be less fragmentation, less duplication, and it'll be easier to adopt and make relevant some of these technologies for your own national needs. So with that, thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Andrew, for that compelling overview. Indeed, we have time for a couple of questions. Can we give a microphone?
I have a question about communities you mentioned. So on the website you are invited to join them. What of that we can use without being a member state? So what are the limitations?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So if you think back to that slide where I showed you the 30 different domains where ELIXIR is active, some of those groups are only for ELIXIR members, but some of them are open for anyone to take part in if they can make contributions to it. And so the ones that are known as ELIXIR communities, like the systems biology community, for example, that you're connected to, anyone in Latvia can already take part in those meetings. It's not reliant on you being an observer or a member. But what we can't do is provide any funding for activities. So the forum, the contact to experts in other countries, that can happen already now if you take part in those communities, but we cannot provide any funding through those projects that I showed you. So that's the easiest way. But on our website, we have a list of what we call our platforms, which are always just for members. So it's data, tools, compute, training. It's only for members. Then we've got the domain-specific activities like rare diseases, cancer, biodiversity, and they are open for people to join the monthly calls, connect to the mailing list so you can find out what's happening in other countries. It's just that you couldn't take part in any funded activities.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Then perhaps to continue the previous question, considering that indeed we have many young researchers here then who are asking themselves probably, where do I start? So what would be that roadmap? Is it the test portal, or what would you advise for a beginner?
Yeah, so I would have a look at some of those key registries and services. So it's clear just from talking to people that training is obviously an area where a lot of institutions are interested in this. So I would say make the most of the TESS training portal to find out what materials are already available for your students and whether when you're running courses and you've got online content, you can already put it in there. I think that's important. You'll hear from Munazah in a moment about our data management activities. And so they are fantastic resources that you can also benefit from and contribute to as well. So I would say the topic of data management is another theme that I can imagine is likely to be of interest to you. I would also say that some of the areas around federated human data, that's likely to be important because of the European level initiatives that are happening and of course the theme of this conference. So I would say our federated human data communities are important. I'm going to stay around at the end of it. I've got lots of business cards. I'm happy to give them out and to also follow up with any of you afterwards if you're interested in a particular area, if you've got a question, because I recognize that in ELIXIR, our nodes jointly run 600 services. And so I'm sure that there are things that you can already be using and benefiting from, but finding out those tools and resources that you need can be difficult. So I can give you advice, and those registries that I showed you on the earlier slides, they're also usually a good entry point as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And indeed, now we move from opportunities to practical implementations, and we will talk about the research data management. So please join me in welcoming the second speaker, which is Dr. Munazah Andrabi, the Deputy Lead of the UK RDM Club from the ELIXIR UK hub node. And she will be joining us online, and her talk is titled Fair by Design, Best Practices in Research Data Management and the ELIXIR RDM Ecosystem. Welcome, Munazah.
Can you try again?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear my echo as well.
We can start.
Can I start then? Yeah. I think the distraction is that I'm hearing myself also.
Fine, so.
Okay, let me just start. And yeah, this is the problem. I'm hearing myself as well. Is there something that you need to probably switch off, some speaker?
Can you maybe please turn down your volume on the computer? In case we need to talk to you, we'll text in the chat, okay? Is that okay with you? Yeah, thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is that fine?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, then I'm going to start. So hello, good afternoon, and I'm sorry that I could not be in person there. I was supposed to be, but unfortunately we couldn't make it work. So we'll try to make the best of it online. So before I go into the ELIXIR RDM ecosystem, I thought it would be useful for all of us to talk about what we mean by research data management and what are the best practices that we should be following. So let's do a quick recap of what research data management really entails. So the first question is, why should we manage data? Why should we worry or bother about it? Of course, like data is your most valuable asset if you're a researcher. So invest your time and energy in its management. And then data, once you've produced it, we all know that science moves forward by relying on the previous results or previous discoveries that have been made. So for that, your data that you have created should be shareable and it should be reusable by the rest of the community. And for that, quality of data is also essential. Now, once you have your data, you should have associated data provenance for its transparency and integrity. And most importantly, why we do need data management now, because we have to comply with the requirements of the funders and the publishers. If nothing, this is the carrot we need to work towards. So, what is data management, or how do we define it? So, it is that you conceive this plan that how will your research data that you create, how will it be managed during and after the research process? Mind you, not just during or before, but after your project has completed. How are you going to deal with it after that? So what data management covers is like right from the inception of this life cycle that you see here. That means you have to think about planning your data, collecting your data, then organizing it through the project, managing it while you're still working on your research project. How are you storing it? How are you making it secure that your data does not get lost, that your computer does not crash and you don't lose your data? Then how are you sharing it with your collaborators and rest of the community? And eventually, how are you preserving your data for the long time? And then data management also covers that you ensure that the research data that you have produced, it is managed and stored according to the legal requirements, ethical requirements, as well as the funding body requirements. From this PMNet forum, I would think that the ethical requirements are very important, given that all of you would be dealing with health data. So these are in crux the things that you should be thinking about when you are producing research data or when you are writing your research grants. These are things you need to keep in mind before you start your projects. But what is the ultimate goal? Why are we caring about this research data management? You all might have heard about the FAIR principles, which is making your data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So the ultimate goal of managing our data well is to have fair management of data, is to follow the set of these principles which ensure that the data that you have produced are shared and stored in a way that it enables and enhances reuse by humans as well as machines. And reuse by humans is very important because, as I said in the beginning, that is what scientific discovery is based on. But other than that, we all have noticed now that whenever we write a grant application or a funding application, we are required by the funders to submit a data management plan. That is, how are we going to manage the data? What are the resources that it will require? How much money do you need to allocate to identify how you're going to manage your data well? So the ultimate goal is to have the FAIR principles at the heart of your data management. Now, there's also talk about, Andy talked about the EOS, which is the European Open Science Cloud, and we are increasingly talking about open science policies. We want to make data open to as many people and as many scientists available. But what we also need to understand that at some points we will need embargo periods where we cannot make our data open. But that does not mean that we cannot make our data fair. People often confuse fair data and open data. Sometimes people are not ready to share the data. So what I want to reiterate and emphasize here, that fair data is not equal to open data. Your data can be fair and it can still be confidential. Data can be both fair and open, and it can be one or the either. So if you're making your data fair, if you're giving access to your collaborators that you know, you're choosing how much access you want to give, that does not mean your data is open. So do not get discouraged by the fact that data will be accessible to everybody. That's why you're not making it fair. No, fair data does not mean open data. It is in your hands how accessible you want to make your data. So there is an intersection between open data, fair data, and RDM. So if you're just keeping your data internal, well managed, that's just going to be useful for you, which is not a good scientific practice, right? We also need to think about the external or the community benefit. So community benefit will happen when you're making your data fair and when you're making your data open. So why we need to worry about community benefit is because we have collaborators, because we have external peers. Only when our data is well managed, that is when it is managed in a very fair way, we can think of this is benefiting the community, and in turn, it will also benefit us because we are also reliant on our collaborators and the rest of the scientific world to progress our discoveries, our research. Now, when I say that you have to do a research data management, so what do I mean by it practically? So you have 3 stages to think about your data. One is before the project, that is when you're writing a grant. At this time, you need to think about data management plans and costing data management, because more often than not, we don't assign any money to management data, how much of a compute we will need, for example, how much of infrastructure we'll need. And then we try to find ad hoc solutions which are not good. Then during the project, you need to be thinking about how you're organizing your data. For example, what is your folder structure? Does your compute have a backup? Are you is your data secure enough that so that there is no hacking or losing your data? Are you protecting your data well? And then after your project is finished, then you need to think about data preservation. Like, how are you preserving the data a long time? Are you using genetic repositories? For example, in case of genomic data, you have the gene expression omnibus or the ENA in Europe, which is the European Nucleotide Archive. And then after the project, you need to also think about data discovery and reuse, which is very important. Again, I re-emphasize, because we need to share our data with the rest of the community. And how do we get around like this? I'm going to touch upon some very brief points of how you're going to go through these 3 phases before I move on to how ELIXIR is going to help you manage your data better. So as I said, before the project, you need to have your data management plan. During the project, you need to have documentation and metadata. You need to have policies for accessibility, that is sharing and accessing your data. You need to have policies for storage and backing up your data. And then after the project, obviously, it has to be long-term preservation, archiving, using the repositories that are available, using the databases that is available, and then worrying about dissemination and visibility of your research that you have done. Now, data management plans are very important because this you need to decide from the beginning, from the inception, that is the equipment and the methods you'll use to create data, the types of data that will be created, the volume of data that will be created. You'll need to think about standards and formats of how you'll store your data. You need to have policies for access, sharing, ownership, and all of these things go in data management plan. So I have quoted this paper here, which is 10 Simple Rules for Creating Good Data Management Plan. And I'll also show you the tools that help you to do this. Then the most important thing that I'm going to reiterate again and again is metadata, that how are you annotating your data? I like this really a nice note from a blog post from Jason Scott, where he calls metadata a loud note to the future. That means if in future time you are accessing your data, or a new colleague is accessing your data who has not been a part of the project or not been a part of the journey, how does he or she get to know what this data is about? So metadata is very, very important. I cannot emphasize that enough. So what does metadata actually entail? It will add context to your data. For what purpose was this data created, for example? What relationship does it have to other data sets? Provenance, who created the data? When was the data collected? What was the collection method? Where are these samples from? And then obviously the ownership, who is responsible for the data? Who do I need to contact if I need to discuss it? When was this created? And what are the rules for me to use this data? Is it free? Is there some licensing issues that I need to worry about? So this is all the metadata that should be associated with your data. And again, I said that data accessibility is very, very important. So you need to have clear policies on the data that you're creating. For example, you need to describe the levels of access you want to provide. Do you want to keep your data confidential? Do you want to keep it restricted to some people and just share it with a certain part of your collaborators? Do you want to keep it open throughout the institute or university you're working in? Or do you want to keep it open to the public? Of course, we encourage open science principles where our data is accessible and available to everybody in the community who is working on the domain. And then you also need to think about sharing. How, if you're sharing your data with your collaborators, how is that happening? Is it that happening in a secure environment? Do you have a policy when and how you'll make your data available? How are you doing transfer of large data files? Are you doing it via your internal file servers or the servers that your university or organization is providing? And all organizations do have recommendations for this. So I would say follow those. Most important part here, once your data is produced, once your data is done, where do you keep it? Do not store your data on your hard disks and personal computers. That's not a good practice because you will lose your data if, for example, you spill coffee over your laptop, which happens so often. So use secure storage facilities, like I'm sure your organization, your university provides central file servers, or there's departmental storage, or now we have cloud storage like Amazon Cloud or Azure, which you should cost into your data management plan when you're writing a grant. So having a single point of truth for your original data is very important. The data that has not been touched upon, it is as it was when it was produced, when it came out for an imaging machine or a sequencer, when the FASTQ files, unprocessed data is the single point of truth, which should be at a central server facility, not in your local hard drives. And then, of course, long-time preservation. So we need to know who is responsible for the data after the project. What happens to your data after the completion of your project? As I said, you have to consider the requirements of the funders or the journals where you're publishing your data. We need to think about using public repositories wherever they're available. There are some domain-specific repositories like GEO, ENA, but there are also generic repositories where you can submit all kinds of data, Dataverse, Zenodo, Figshare, and always consult your organization if they provide long-term storage solutions. Maybe you don't need to look outside. And now, keeping all of this in mind, that you have to think about all of these data management aspects when you are running your project. So how is ELIXIR going to help you in this? So if you are providing your, if you're becoming a part of ELIXIR, how is it going to make your data management journey easier? ELIXIR has a lot of resources in its ecosystem, what we call the research data management ecosystem, that can help you. We have the RDM kit, which provides you the best practices and guidelines of managing your data. We have the FAIR cookbook, which can give you particular recipes of how you're going to verify your data. And then we have the DSW, which is the tool to provide or make data management plans for you. And as Andy mentioned, we have the ELIXIR core data resources, deposition databases, recommended interoperability resources. We also have the ELIXIR test, which is a training portal where you can register your training and events for other people and for yourself to find. So test is the training portal for both trainees and trainers. Fair sharing will help you in finding the standards that you want to apply for your kind of data that you are producing or that you're using. And then we also have a repository called ELIXIR Bio.tools, which we try to list all the tools that are available to help you do, for example, data management, or you need for control vocabularies, ontologies. So all of these tools you can find in the ELIXIR Bio.tools. So ELIXIR is going to help you in an end-to-end manner of managing your data via the use of these resources that are present in its ecosystem or a part of its ecosystem. What I'm going to talk about a little more in detail is the RDM kit, which is the Research Data Management Toolkit. I'm one of the founding editors of the RDM kit, and this is a very popular tool from ELIXIR. In fact, it is our flagship tool. So what RDM kit helps you with, so if you know nothing about research data management, or you don't know where to start from, so RDM Kit will help you get started with the best practices and guidelines and that you need to know about data management. And then it can also help you go into the domain specific requirements that are, let's say you are from human genomics field, or you're from human data field. So you will have additional requirements of data management than a generic how to manage your data, because you need to think about anonymizing your data. You need to think about sensitive data. So that is what RDM Kit is going to help you with. So for example, I'm going to say how you can access RDM Kit here is you can access the content on RDM Kit in multiple ways. If you want to learn about general RDM, data management at various stages of the life cycle, which are these stages, you can go to the data life cycle. Then again, if you are a researcher, your requirements for data management are different compared to if you're a policymaker. So depending on your role, we also have guidance for data management for researchers, guidance for data management as policymakers, or funding agencies, then this might be of interest to you. You're in the Your Domain section. We are addressing domain-specific data management problems. You're from human data, you have different requirements. You're from marine data field, your requirements are different. So this is not a comprehensive domain list that we cover, but we try to keep adding to it. And you can go and check our page. And if you see that some of the domains that you're interested in are not there, you can get in touch with the editorial team and we'll help you write content, data management related content for that particular domain. What is useful here and noteworthy here is that these data management best practices and guidelines are written by the community itself. So these are written by scientists and researchers who are very, very hands-on. So they know what they're doing. It's not written by me, who is an editor. I just review the document. It's written by the people who are actually working in the field. So this is real help for people coming from particular fields. We also then cater to general tasks about data management, like what is a data management plan? How do I start writing data management plan? And then we also have created some of the tool assemblies where there are, throughout the life cycle of data management, the life cycle that you saw on the previous slide, the tools that are available to do management or data management at each of those steps. We also have national resources where we know that, for example, GDPR requirements are different in different European countries. So we try to gather the country-specific data management guidelines and regulations and try to, get them together here. So it will be a great thing if the Latvian data management group or whoever is interested in data management puts out these information on the RDM kit, that what is specific for Latvia in terms of data management. In addition to RDM Kit, we also have other tools that can be useful for data management. As I said, DSW, which is the Data Stewardship Wizard, and it helps you write your data management plan. We have the Fair Cookbook, where you will get recipes that help you make and keep your data fair. We have Fair Sharing, which Andy also mentioned. It is a registry of policies, databases, and standards. We have the Biodot tools. We also have Seek for Science, which is led by the ELIXIR UK, but it is also worked on by ELIXIR Germany, ELIXIR Belgium, which is a data management catalog. It's like you can say it is a kind of an eLab notebook where you can document your investigation, your studies, your essays that you're creating for your data throughout the project. And then we also have RO-Crate, which is a lightweight solution to package your research outputs together with the metadata. And then Workflow Hub is again a registry of computational workflows and standard operating procedures that you use while you're running your experiments. So all of this together can help you manage your data better. But what is also important is that all of this information can be very overwhelming for you, and there is so much to do. So what we have done in ELIXIR is that we have created these user journeys. I'll get to that in a bit, but we also have frequently asked questions like, how do I find standards for data and data sets to add to the DMP? So you can read through these FAQs. But what the user journeys are going to do for you is, now, if you have a question, how do I start with data management? So we have built these user journeys that start using the ELIXIR resources that are available. For example, RDM Kit, Fair Cookbook Test. How do I start to learn about data management? And then we'll show you these journeys at where you should start. We will say that you should start by reading the RDM Kit, where it will tell you about generic data management rules, then go on to Fair Cookbook. That will give you a step-by-step guidance, see if there is training material available in tests already around this topic, and then move on to more specific requirements. Similarly, how do I write a data management plan? Then using those tools that are available in the ELIXIR data management ecosystem, you can navigate these questions. And there are many such other user journeys which can help you get started. And with that, like, what I would also like to say here is that Andy was talking about communities. We also have the ELIXIR Research Data Management community. And to become a part of the Research Data Management community, you don't need to be a member of the ELIXIR. You can join us anytime. We have monthly meetings every second Tuesday of the month for an hour, where we get together and talk about data management related issues. You can bring your issue, or we have a topic that we discuss. You can go to the ELIXIR page and join us, join the community, and benefit from all the work that we are doing there. What I would also like to invite you to is please have a look at our RDM Kit pages and see if there is some content that you see is missing, because RDM Kit is a tool by the community for the community. So I would like to invite you to see and come and help us in increasing the content and helping the rest of the community. With that, I would like to end my talk, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Munazah, for this really comprehensive and at the same time, I would say, exciting talk on the research data management. So we have time for 1 or 2 questions again. Any questions from the audience?
I have a question to the audience. Do we have anybody from data management? Sorry, Mike, use the mic, sorry. Yeah, the quick question, audience. Do we have anybody from the data management, the curators? Oh, here you are. Did you hear how you can join the monthly meetings? Did you sign up? How do you sign up? How do our data curators can sign up to your monthly meetings?
Page communities, there is a research data management community there, and there is a join us button there. You click on that and then it will take you through and it will give you all the information. So once you join that, you'll be on our mailing list and you'll get the invitation to join the monthly meetings. But for the ELIXIR, for the RDM kit, you can please have a look at the content. And if you feel that you want to add some, or you want to edit something, or you feel some content is not right, because RDM kit is a live document, there again, there's an email ID on our contact page. You can contact the editors and we will take up your questions and comments there.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for joining, Munazah.
Thank you, Baiba, for the invitation.
Now we bring our focus back home to a practical and transformative example from Latvia itself, as we will now hear from the data curator team at Rīga Stradiņš University, who will talk about accelerating open science in Latvia, a case study from Rīga Stradiņš University, participation in a National Data Stewards Network, presented by Lina. Please, welcome.
So, good afternoon. My name is Lina, and where are my slides? Okay. No. Okay. So, as a part of RSU Data Steward unit, I will share Rīga Stradiņš University experience participating in national project support for practical implementation of open science and solutions for research data. Research data. This is so long title. So usually we refer to this project as Data Steward project, where the main focus is really to endorse open science in Latvia. And this is great to build on everything already Andrew said about the opportunities of ELIXIR. We would definitely benefit from them. And also a lot what was heard from Dr. Andrabi really resonates with the work we have already done. So first we need to go back in time a little bit to understand the context. This journey began at a pivotal moment in European research. Between 2019 and 2020, the European Commission made clear that open science and open access weren't optional extras. They were becoming the fundamental requirements. At the same time, our research department director recognized that meeting these requirements would need more than policy documents. It would require dedicated expertise in data stewardship. RSU needed to build capacity now. So by 2021, RSU had appointed Latvia's first dedicated data steward and also launched the first research data repository in Latvia, RSU Dataverse. But ecosystem But our first pioneer soon found what a lot of pioneers discover, that we need something bigger. We need a network, we need a community, and one person cannot change everything, or one institution cannot change the national ecosystem. So the VPC launched a National Data Steward project. And let me be concrete about what this network delivers. For researchers, this isn't more bureaucracy. It is support that makes their lives easier and their research more competitive. For Latvia, we're not just participating in European research, we're helping to shape it. When ELIXIR discusses data stewardship models, Latvia now has a seat at the table, and RSU early investment, it positioned us to lead this transformation, not just follow it. Data Steward network is essential in accelerating open science practices in institutions, ensuring trained data stewards, sharing and optimizing costs, as well as ensuring national voice in ELIXIR and EOSC discussions. Together this summer, the network launched a federated national repository, Dataverse LV. It is built using the RSU Dataverse as a prototype, and our institutional repository is connected and integrated into Dataverse LV. This is infrastructure that would have been impossible for any single institution to build and maintain, but collectively we have created a national resource that connects Latvia to the global research ecosystem. In just 12 months, we have gone from fragmented individual efforts to a coordinated national infrastructure. Then more about the bigger picture of what we have accomplished nationally. In September 2024, something unprecedented happened in Latvia. 4 major universities at the same time established data steward units. It was a coordinated strategy. The main universities of Latvia together representing the breadth of Latvian research from health sciences to engineering to agriculture. This network now comprises over 20 data stewards. That's 20 professionals who did not exist in Latvian research ecosystem 13 months ago. We knew that creating units wasn't enough. We needed to function as a network. We have held 3 in-person events where we share challenges, solutions, and build relationships. And we invested seriously in professional development. Every single data steward went to Edinburgh for intensive 12-day training with the Digital Curation Center, one of the world's leading organizations in this field. This wasn't just technical training, it was about establishing a common language and approach across our network. But the magic happens in our ongoing work groups, where we're not just coordinating, we are actively co-creating. When we develop a standard or a guideline, it's tested across 4 different institutional contexts. Our first major developer, comprehensive research data management guide for Latvia. This isn't just an Rīga Stradiņš University guide or guide for University of Latvia. It is a national resource that any Latvian researcher can use. Now let me bring this back to RSU and show you what this means for our institution exactly. As already introduced during the first day of the conference, Agrita Kiope, the Vice Rector of Science, the Vice Rector for Science is the driving force of acceleration of science at RSU. Together with Lena Nikitina-Zatye, Research Department Director, they shape the direction of data stewards and highlight the way. We all 5 work together to contribute to both the network and university. To balance the focus and assign specific tasks, we have our unit leader, Laura Baduna. The assignment process is heavily influenced by each member's related field. For me, it is medical science and pharmacy. For my colleague, Viola, it is medical sciences and epidemiology. For Manta, social sciences and library, and we involve Agata whenever there is any IT-related question, which, to be honest, is quite often. So, further, what do we do? At the core, we serve RSU researchers directly, and this is our primary mission. From the research department, we receive up-to-date information about the newly approved research projects at RSU. We contact the PIs to remind and offer help to develop DMPs. Also, everyone is encouraged to deposit their datasets in the institutional repository. Before the deposit, we ensure the dataset format, structure, and all the needed additional documentation, such as README file, codebook, are in place. We carry out the file upload and metadata entry records. To do this, we have developed and updated several RSU internal documents related to research. Metadata questionnaire for data deposits in the RSU dataverse, DMP template, research data management regulations, informed consent form template, guideline on processing of special categories of personal data, RSU software and IT tools catalog, to name a few. We also do our best to be seen and heard on international level. For example, our colleague Agate, together with Baiba, attended ELIXIR All Hands 2025. All our unit was at the DCC conference this spring, and individually we also participated in Data 2025, Fairfest, Open Science Fair, as well as Erasmus Plus Staff Mobility to University of Ljubljana, which is also an excellent ELIXIR node. So to continue, we have achieved a lot, and we are still learning how to improve our reach, visibility, and training for researchers. We have already conducted 6 workshops for researchers on open science, FAIR principles, DMPs, long-term and short-term data storing, dataset quality assurance, RSU IT tools and platforms. Now we're looking for a way to reach undergraduate students. And we already launched one demo seminar about research data management and reuse for public health program students. And other seminars are also planned for students in rehabilitation program and statistics. The main goal is to encourage reuse of data, especially when the data needed is personal, sensitive data. Through interviews with a Center for Disease Prevention and Control, Children's Clinical University Hospital, and Riga East University Hospital, we have recognized that student research at times bring unnecessary administrative strain on institutions, and reuse of data found in repositories and large-scale databases, for example, SHARE, could be a solution while we do not have synthetic data to offer. We are also proud to see that since our unit was put in action, RSU Dataverse was revived. Although it was established in 2021, the interest to deposit datasets had already begun to dwindle. Out of all 113 datasets deposited there, today 50 of those were deposited by our team during these 13 months. Now, let me bring this back to RSU timeline and show you our specific role with this national ecosystem. We have a unique position. We are not just another network member. We are the pioneer who learned from the hard lessons early, and we are sharing that knowledge. Those 3 pioneer years before the network launched weren't wasted. Every mistake we made, every challenge we solved, directly influenced how we designed the national network. We were the prototype. Also, RSU brings something critical to the network: deep expertise in health and life sciences. This isn't abstract when you are dealing with patient data, genomic information, clinical trials. The stakes are higher and the requirements more complex. RSU often leads on health sciences topics because we have the domain depth, the sensitive data guidelines in our national RDM guide. That was largely RSU expertise. We are not just training RSU researchers, we also provide support to our colleagues from other universities. And the most importantly, RSU serves as the bridge to ELIXIR. When Andrew Smith talks about ELIXIR opportunities, RSU is the one helping Latvian researchers getting closer to them. So, learn from our mistakes so you don't repeat them in case you want to replicate this type of project. So first, we always need to start with the positives. The leadership commitment. We would not have done this much if it wasn't for our Vice Rector for Science and Research Department Director. The direction given and the support was immense. When talking to our colleagues from other universities, the feedback at times was not that positive. They were a bit worried to ruffle some feathers, worried to change something, others would prefer to stay the same. Our leadership embraced the change, even demanded. And most importantly, are capable to show where to start, as they already had previous experience with data stewardship. Another positive, this network is more than just formal colleagues. It is a community where we can get ideas, inspiration, and advice. At the same time, we need to keep in mind that open science cannot be built only on soft infrastructure. It requires a serious technical support that needs an investment. A true challenge was the limited awareness of data stewardship as well, combined with limited project funding for communication especially. More visible researcher awareness campaigns would have helped to get more traction to early workshops we carried out. And the most important thing, KPIs. How to measure our value. DMPs are limited to approved projects. More consultations do not necessarily mean more educated researchers. More data sets do not mean more fair data, as data set could be ample and complex and beat in size for other data sets. So this is something we still do not know. We do not know also how to measure reuse. The one thing we really regret is not conducting measurement of researcher open science literacy before launching this project. We plan to do this at the end, but of course it is going to be less informative without a comparison. And I want to be completely honest with you about where we stand. So our project funding ends in May 2026. That's just 8 months away. We don't yet know exactly what happens after that. Will data steward positions become permanent university staff? If so, under research department, the library, or will there be another project to continue this work? These decisions are being made at institutional level above us or even higher. What we can control is how we use the next 8 months. So here's what we are focusing on, areas where we can deliver concrete value regardless of what happens with long-term structure. So sensitive data, clinical records, dynamic information, patient data, this is where Latvian research has competitive advantage, but it's also where data management is most complex. We are developing advanced training because this expertise is scarce and valuable. Similarly, large-scale genomic research is growing. We need consultation capacity that does not exist yet. And this connects directly to ELIXIR strains, where they have tools and frameworks we should leverage. Also, everyone is talking about AI in research. We are partnering up with Aalto University to provide thoughtful guidance. Not just hear ChatGPT, go crazy, but how to use generative AI responsibly in research contexts. Because AI will amplify whatever practices already exist. If your data management is messy, AI will make messy faster. And there are some hard truths about the infrastructure we have. So our IT infrastructure has serious gaps, such as fragmented systems that don't talk to each other, and that requires a lot of manual data transfers. And also, apart from Rīga Technical University, other universities do not have easily accessible, safe environments for sensitive data processing. So I genuinely hope that Latvia will succeed in becoming an ELIXIR node. And finally, I would like to thank Baiba about this opportunity to share our experience. And yes, this is our funding. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much. Indeed, your work serves as a role model for institutional transformation in research data culture. Do we have questions from the audience? Yes, please. Can we get the microphone?
Yes, hello. I'm Nikolai. I am from investment and technology side. Thank you for your presentation. I really enjoy it. Yeah, but I didn't see the answer. Really, one question what interesting for us. I mean, for private sector from technologies and from private investment. Yeah. How do you see cooperation with the private sector, not only healthcare? I mean, you have only big data on private healthcare companies. Yeah.
Okay.
And you also have different companies that have very interesting and really big technologies. And how do you see possibility to involve these companies to this cooperation? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. So every data is of value. I'm not completely sure if I completely understood the questions as who is the data holder. So if we're going from the perspective, so first of all, we as university do not hold any data ourselves. We gather data through our researchers when collaborating with hospitals. But how can we collaborate with other, let's say, private institutions? We really do hope to amplify more this interaction with industry. But what can we offer? This is a good question. It depends what the private sector really needs at this time. I would guess that we could offer more of precision medicine. So we have already heard a lot of great talks from our researchers, what they are seeing in terms of genetic testing. So it would be great if private sector would come to us and say, hey, we also want to participate in that. We want your brain power to come and work with this data. Where we as a network can come in is to help to get a better legal framework. I wasn't counting all the work groups we have in our network, and one of the network groups is working to develop these legal documents that would include clear roles when our researchers are joining into a particular data holder to ensure that the responsibilities are clear. I don't know if I answered your question. I hope at least at some point I did.
Thank you. I'm sorry, yeah, one quick announcement. We need to end this session a bit earlier because we are expected to be at the closing event, which starts 4:30. So we have 5 more minutes. So very, very quick question, yeah, please.
Very short question. Elīna Dimiņa, Children's Clinical University Hospital Research Department. For next 8 months, as a hospital, and there are a lot of researchers come to our hospital with research ideas and to ask for research permits. Do you agree that we can ask for comprehensive or data management plans for next 8 months and receive these data management plans as part of our agreements?
That would be wonderful, because one of the things that we do require data management plans from our researchers, but there is a challenge to get these done in a timely manner because we are not going in that penalty direction. We are more like highlighting the ones that do everything correctly. So if other institutions for collaboration would require these DMPs, we would get that number even higher of those who comply with this requirement.
Thank you very much. And indeed, with that, I would like to thank all our speakers. I would like to thank the representatives from the universities for signing the Memorandum of Understanding. And of course, I would like to thank our funders and the Ministry of Education and Science for enabling this event. And also, I would like to thank to all the participants for being part of this milestone. Thank you very much, and see you next year.